Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to look at some more 2D arrays. We're going to look at more stuff about the 2D arrays. So from our last lesson, we built a multiplication table using the 2D array. We loaded the two-dimensional array here, and then we loaded it here using the nested for loops, and then we printed the array here. And I have transferred all that code to our next lesson here. So this is the same lesson as our previous lesson. If you run it, and there is the two-dimensional array. The only difference is I'm not creating a new method to print the array. I'm using the same method as before. So what I have here is I have the class name dot the method name, and it's actually calling the method from our other program from our previous lesson. It's calling this method to print the array. So basically all that does is it's printing the array. And if you want to look at the code for that, you can look at the notes on the last lesson, and you will see the code for printing the 2D array. So today, let's continue. Let's look at more features, more things about the 2D array. So in our last lesson, we have a 9 by 9 two-dimensional array, but they don't have to be equal. So you can have like a 9 by 5 two-dimensional array, and it still works. So if I change that to 5, I run it, you can see that the number of columns now is only 5. I still have 9 rows, and I only have 5 columns. So that's perfectly fine. In fact, you don't need to have the same number of columns in each row. Like you can have one row with 3 columns and another row with 5 columns in the same array. That would be fine too. You just have to define them each row separately, like the length of each row, you have to define them separately. All right. Next thing we want to look at is let's look at how to initialize the array. So here, one way to initialize the array is, well, one way to load the array is to do it this way. But say if you want to initialize the array, you can do it this way. So I'm just going to comment this out. So it's not going to print anything. And I'm going to start a new section of the code here. So to initialize the array, you just define an integer array, two-dimensional, and let's call it AA. I'm going to make it equal to 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to close this bracket. So that's my first row. That's the data for my first row. Then I'm going to put a comma here. Then I'm going to go to the next line, or you can do it on the same line as well if you like. I want to make it look clear, so I'm going to the next line. Then I'm going to do 4, 5, 6. Oh, what happened to my indentation there? It just went back. Okay. And then let me put one more space in there. Okay, that's my second row, and now I need my third row. So it's gonna be 7, 8, 9. Then I have to close the bracket and put in the semicolon. Okay, so here's my array. I defined this array as a 3 by 3, and I initialize it with these values. So if I want to go and print it out, I'm going to bring this down here, uncomment it, then I'm going to run it. There's an error. Oh, great. I have an extra bracket somewhere. So this bracket here is extra. Remove that. And now let's try. Oh, you know something. I want to print the double A array because the AA is up here. I don't want to print that. We're done with this. So I'm printing the double A array here. In fact, let me comment this out. I'll just leave it. I'm just commenting out the print here, so it's not gonna print. What I'm printing is I'm printing this array right now with this print statement. So let me run this, and there it is. So here's the code for it. I'm initializing the array with these numbers, and I'm defining the array at the same time. So I'm defining the array as 3 by 3 with those numbers, and then this statement here prints out the array. And as you can see, the array has been defined, has been loaded and printed. Now to change an element in the array, say like if you want to change element 0, 0, what you do is you do the name of the array, and this is the row index. You specify the row index and the column index. So if you do 0, 0, then it's gonna be this one in the corner here. It's gonna be changed. So what number should I make it change it to? Say like we want to change it to 55, and run this, and there you can see it has changed element 0, 0 in this corner to 55. The rest of the array is left untouched because I'm only changing one element in this two-dimensional array. So that's one way to initialize and define a two-dimensional array. Another way to do it is, well, another thing about the two-dimensional array is, as I mentioned before, the rows and the columns don't need to be, the rows don't need to have the same number of columns. So let's demonstrate that. So I'm gonna do a string array as opposed to an integer array. So these up here are integer arrays. They store integer numbers. Now I'm gonna do a string array, and let's call it B, and it's gonna be new string, and I just want to define 3 rows, but I'm gonna left the number of columns undefined because now I want to define them separately with different length. So for example, if I want the first row B0 to be to have a length of 3, I would do new string array 3. Alright, I want that outside the bracket. And now I can load the value in for each of those cells in the first row. So I'm gonna do B 0, 0 equals to, and I'm just gonna assign the letter A for the string. now I have three columns here, right? So this is my first column. I need the second and the third. So I'm gonna have 0, 1, 0, 2 equals to B, C. So that's my first row. Now this array has 3 different rows, so I'm gonna need 2 more. So let's say if my second row, so this is gonna be my second row here. It's gonna be B1, and everything here is gonna be 1. And the next one here is gonna be 2. So these are gonna be the second row. Alright, now let's see. So let's change it to give it a different length. So my second row, I want to give it only 2 columns. So I'm gonna have to remove this last one here. And I'm gonna give it a different value. So it's gonna be D, E. And this is my third row. Let's make it even longer. We're gonna make it 4. So I'm gonna have F, G, H, and I just need one more. Change this to 3. And it's an I. Now we're gonna print the array, but since this is a string array, I'm not gonna be able to use this integer print to print. We can try it, but it's gonna give me an error. Okay, so here we're gonna print it. Let's try and run it. Oh, I need to change this because I don't want to print AA is up there. I want to print our array is array B. So we want to print the array B here. And you see there's an error right here because the method is expecting an integer to the array to be passed in, but we are passing in B, which is a 2-dimensional string array. So we cannot use that. So let's build our own string array method. So from here, I'm gonna copy from our last lesson. I'm gonna copy the method to print from our last lesson, and I'm gonna squeeze it into our current program. So I'm gonna call it print to the array, print to the string array maybe. And I'm gonna change this integer to a string. So now I have a string array, and I guess the rest is the same. The print format here needs to be changed to a string, and I think that's it. I need to change the name here, so now I'm gonna change to string print. Print to the print string to the array. Okay. It still doesn't like it. It's undefined. Okay, because now this method is in here, so I don't want to point it to the other class anymore. I gotta remove remove this. Okay, very good. Let's run it. And there's my 2D array with different length. So here I have 3 columns here. That's defined as 3 columns. That's the first row. And then the second row has only 2 columns. And then the third row has 4 columns. Alright, so there you have it. The 2D array can have different length of columns in each row. Now the next question we have is, how do you fill the 2D array? Remember, when you have a one-dimensional array, you use the arrays.fill to fill the array. But now you have a 2-dimensional array. So how do we fill the 2-dimensional array? Fill 2D array. Okay, so one way we can try is we can do it this way, arrays. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and fill this array. You see we have this array right here. Let me move this down. Let me format this to make it look nicer. Okay. All I did was I reformatted the line, so the system did that, and they move it move it sideways instead of having it coming down. That's fine. Let's leave it sideways. So I have this 2-dimensional array here, right? Let me show it to you first. Okay, I just want to make sure. I'm gonna remove this. I'm gonna remove this comment here, and let me run it. Oh, and I have to comment this out. Otherwise, it's gonna print too many things, and it's just gonna confuse us. So. Okay, so now we have this one array here, right? And the initial value is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, how do I fill it with like a single value instead of that? So one way to do it would be to use the arrays fill. So if I do arrays.fill, and this is an integer array, so I want to fill the AA array with the value of 0. Okay, the editor took it, but let's see how it comes out. So instead of printing it here, I'm gonna print it down here. Alright, so I have the same array here, and I filled it, then I print it after I do this line here. And it doesn't take it. It doesn't like it because, why? I'm not sure. Integer unknown. There's something wrong with it, so it doesn't take that. Another way to do it would be to try arrays fill, but I'm gonna have to declare an array of integer here. So I'm gonna do new integer array. Oh, I think I know why. No, I'm not sure. It doesn't like that. So I'm gonna do new integer. But anyway, that one didn't work. So I'm gonna do new integer array here. And I'm gonna initialize this new integer array to 0, 0, 0. Alright, and let's try it this way. The first way did not work if we just put a 0 there, because this array fill is actually for a one-dimensional array, so it doesn't work for the two-dimensional array. So this one seems to work. So for each row in the array AA, I fill it with a new integer array, which I initialize that to 0, 0, 0. So that seems to work. The only problem there is when you go and change one cell in the two-dimensional array. Say if I change AA 0, 0. So I'm changing the element in the corner here. I'm just changing this element to, let's say 5, for example. And let's run this. You see there's something wrong there, because I'm only changing element 0, 0. And it went and changed element 0, 0, 1, 0, and 2, 0. So basically, when you do it this way, it actually filled the first row. It looks like it filled the first row, and these two rows are just pointers to the first row. So remember when you do in the array A equals array B, and it just changed the pointer, but it's not creating a brand new copy of the array? It looks like that's what it's doing here. So this method of fill is not gonna work. So this one doesn't work. The first method doesn't work. This one doesn't work either. Alright, so now let's look at some methods to fill the array that would work. So one way to do it would be to fill the array with, like we initialize the array. So if we have all 0 here, if I change these to all 0, that should do it. So let me remove these. Or maybe, do I want to leave it there? No, let me just remove it. So this is one way to fill the array. Okay, and I'm gonna run this. And there you have it, it's all 0. And just to make sure that it works, I'm gonna change AA 0, 0 to 5. And let's run it one more time. There it is. So it just changed only one element, and it doesn't change all the rows. So this is one way that works. Another way that works is to use the nested for loops. So if you do it this way, it should work. If you do it like up here, using nested for loops. Okay, so you do for I equals to 0 up to the length of the array, and same thing with j, and then you set this equal to any number you want. Set it equal to 0, or maybe let's set it equal to, yeah, let's do it 0. I'm gonna comment this one out, and we'll run this. And remember, this is array AA here. One thing I want to do is I want to change this back to something else. So let's make this 1, because down here it's gonna change it back to 0. Okay, so I want to start out with all 1s, and then I'm gonna fill it using the for loop to change it to all 0. Alright, I'm gonna move this line here down to here, and we'll run it. Oh, I need to move this line down to here too. I'll copy it. Let's run it again. One more try. Okay, so let's see what happens. So we start out with an array with all 1s, and we have these 2 nested loops, for loops. We have the nested for loops to change it to all 0. Then we're changing this A00 element to 5, and then we print it out. So this one works as well. That's another way to do it with the nested for loops. And I'll show you one more method to do it with the for each loop. So we're gonna, maybe this is my favorite method here. We're gonna fill with for each loop. Right, so we're gonna use the same array again. I should comment this out, all these. So basically all we have is we have this one. We have this array here starting out with all 1s, and I want to change it to all 0. So I'm gonna do for integer, because this array is array of integers. So for integer array I from the double A array, I'm gonna do arrays dot fill, and I'm filling the I with the value of 0. And then I want to do this one just to make sure it works. That's like a test. So I'm changing element 0, 0 to 5, and then I want to print it. Alright, let's give that a try. And there you have it, that worked too. So it filled the array with 0, and then it changed the element 0, 0 to 5, and then we printed the array.